Right, Dr. Mori with one of our anatomy videos, Uncivilized Anatomy playlist, and today we're going to be classifying bones. So we talked about the axial skeleton versus the appendicular skeleton and the names of the 206 bones, roughly, that the human adult has in your body. And then we're going to talk about how to classify those bones. So this video will be real simple. We're not going to go into the detailed anatomy of the bone. We'll do that in the next video or another video. And we'll do one on connective tissue in general, so we understand like bone, cartilage, tendon, ligament, even blood are all versions of fascia, are connective tissues of the four major classes of tissue. This one's going to be classifying bones. So we have five classifications of bones. Okay? We have long bones, short bones, flat bones, and irregular bones. And then the fifth one is the sesamoid bone. Sometimes you don't really hear that fifth classification of bone, just these first four. So the long bones are going to be basically longer in one dimension than they are in the other, longer than they are wide, I guess, whereas short bones would be considered sort of square or cubish. Cuboid. Flat bones, exactly what it sounds like, flat. And then irregular bones would be bones that don't have a shape that fits in one of the other three. Sesamoid bones are small bones. I guess there would be a type of short bone, but one that develops within the body of a tendon. There are smaller bones that develop within other joints, like the sutures of the skull. Those are called Wormian bones. We're not going to talk about those too much. You find sesamoid bones. The biggest and most common example is the patella in the kneecap, or it's called the kneecap. It's in the quadriceps tendon. You're going to have a couple sesamoid bones under the base of the big toe. You've got your pisiform, that little carpal that's in the tendon of the flexor carpi ulnaris. That is a sesamoid bone. All right, so we'll come back to those in a little bit. Irregular shaped bones that don't fit the other classes, think about your mandible or your vertebra, bones that are kind of odd shaped or irregular shaped. Flat bones, this would be your sternum and your scapula. A lot of red blood cell production in adults from the flat bones. Short bones, those would be your little wrist bones and your ankle bones, and then long bones would be all the rest, your femur, your tibia, your humerus, radius, ulna. So let's talk about a couple other ways that we classify bones besides just their shape, the long and the short. So basically, a long bone, right, will have a layer. I'm going to draw this sort of as a cutaway. We'll have a layer of thick, sometimes called compact bone, okay, the dense compact bone, and then it will have an inner structure that's made up of these trabeculations or little bony frameworks, and this can be called, this trabecular bone can be called cancellous bone or spongy bone. Right? So it's got a couple different names. But in your long bone, you'll find the shaft of the bone, right, the diaphysis, and then you have the ends of the bones. Right? This would be called the epiphysis. So the two epiphyses, there's one at the other end as well. The two epiphyses are farther away from each other than they are wide. That's why it's a long bone. This one's not a real bone. I just drew it because it looks like a cartoon dog bone, but it gives you the idea. So the epiphyses, the two ends of the bone, will be filled with this spongy or cancellous bone, and there's lots of room in there. And then the long bone, or the diaphysis, the long part of the long bone, is going to have a canal through the middle that's going to be full of, this medullary canal will be full of the bone marrow. We'll get more into the anatomy of the specific bones in a little bit. There's another little area here, a little section called the metaphysis. Right? or a epiphyseal line. This is the growth plate, and this is where the ossification centers of the bones kind of grow together. So you have the diaphysis and the epiphysis are joined by the metaphysis, and that's where the bony growth plate is, and that's where the cartilaginous transformation into the compact or spongy bone will occur, so that the bone grows in length. Right? So in the long bone, you're going to have a compact shaft and then caps at either end that are filled with spongy bone. This would be a long bone. In your short bones, which are more cuboid shaped, you'll have kind of a box of compact bone all the way around, and the inside would be filled with that spongy bone. Right? That would be more of a short bone, like a cube shaped, like the carpals in the wrist. Your flat bone would be sort of a plate of compact bone and another plate of compact bone with spongy bone all in between. All right, cancellous or spongy bone in between, kind of like a sandwich cookie. Right, so this would be your sometimes called a diploid formation. This is your flat bone. Your regular bones, like let's say one of your vertebrae, right, with the transverse process coming out here. And you can see this is an irregular shaped bone, but this would have a thin layer, very thin layer of compact bone around over the top and the bottom, and be filled with spongy bone inside the big body of this. And then the compact bone would form sort of a barrel around there, the body. And then the bony end plate on the top and the bottom would be very thin compact bone, almost like it's got some little give to it, almost like a trampoline. We'll talk about this more when I go into I'll do a vertebral body video and explain more about that. But you can see from this, the shape is obviously an irregular shaped bone, but it's going to be the spongy bone to fill the body, and some of the little parts here. It's got like a flat part on the spinous process, and then the flat bones would have the two plates of compact bone surrounding the cancellous plate. Long bones would be longer in one dimension, have that diaphysis or that shaft where it's hollow with the bone marrow, and then the short bones are just kind of cube shaped, and your carpals or your ankle bones are good examples where they're about the same width and length, and then they have a thinner layer of compact bone, but they're full of the spongy bone inside. So that's some basic classification categories for bones in the skeleton. So you can go back through now and give yourself a chance to go over the entire skeleton and classify all the 206 bones you've learned. You're going to find more of the irregular and flat bones in the axial skeleton, and more of the long and short bones in the appendicular skeleton. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it's a general guideline. And then we will go over in another video, probably the next one, the different types of, the difference between ligaments and tendons, and the different types of cartilage, and we'll do a video on the articular classifications of all the joints in the body. So we'll do that next. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe, so when one of these new anatomy videos goes up, you get notified and you can continue to learn about how your body works after we get the first maybe 400 videos done where we just learn the names of everything. So hope you enjoy.